is all I feel. It's why I just keep running.
With gas prices up almost $2 over recent years, it's time for the United States government to end our dependence on foreign oil. There are new renewable sources of energy that are much more applicable and ready to use than most people might think.
Today, oil has become one of the most widely used sources of energy. Its common applications today are seen in cars, appliances, and much more. Compared to all other forms of energy, oil is the best source of energy used to travel high speeds and for long distances. It creates many jobs as companies need many people to help with the drilling and distributing aspects. In fact, the oil industry employs 9.2 million Americans, 5.2% of the nation's total employment.
However, some might say that the cons of oil energy outweigh the benefits. Oil is a non-renewable energy source, which means that one day the world will cease to contain any oil. Also, the burning of oil releases CO2 and other chemicals into the air. These gases, known as greenhouse gases, are the main source of global warming.
Are we going to be energy independent by 2040?
We'll still be importing a portion of our energy use. Most of those imports in our forecast are oil. Over the forecast period, we don't think that the U.S. will reach self-sufficiency in oil production, but we've made a lot of progress over the past 10 years in that direction.
The U.S. relies very heavily on foreign countries supplying oil. In 2008, the U.S. produced about 4.9 million barrels of crude oil a day, but imported roughly twice as much. Without these outside sources, it would be impossible for the U.S. to produce enough oil to power everything in our country. This dependence forces the U.S. to remain friendly with these countries that supply our oil, placing a strain on our foreign policy. But last but not least, oil is dangerous and expensive to transport.
Another important and inexpensive source of energy is caused by the burning of coal, which can be burned in the solid, liquid, or gaseous states. The liquid and gaseous states produce less pollution and are therefore favorable.
On the other hand, coal-fired plants are a big source of today's pollution. According to the 2010 Statistical Abstract administered by the U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. burned 2,851,366.1 tons of coal every day in 2008, leading to an estimated 1.7 billion tons of CO2 being released to the environment. These high levels of pollution resulting from this burning contribute greatly to the global warming phenomena. Pollution from coal burning has been known to hurt the lungs of people, especially those with respiratory problems. Along with these environmental effects, coal is also not renewable, and eventually it will disappear from the earth.
Nuclear energy is one of the best alternatives to burning fossil fuels. Incidents like 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl give nuclear power plants a bad name, but scientists have made tons of technological advancements since then to make nuclear energy much safer. It is also one of the best at preventing air pollution. It generates heat from fission instead of burning fossil fuels, and as a result does not contribute any greenhouse gases that create acid rain or smog.
It is even the cheapest source of renewable energy, available at just 2 cents per kilowatt hour. This explains why there is already over 100 nuclear plants in the United States that produce almost 1/5 of our nation's energy. Building more nuclear plants would send us on the right track to becoming energy independent. Opponents argued that the cost of building each power plant will outweigh the fact that they produce cheap energy, and that the nuclear waste created will be harmful to the environment. Both arguments should be considered by the government before choosing to commit to nuclear energy.
Another source of renewable energy is wind power. It has no emissions whatsoever and does not require any fuel. With new technology, the turbines can start spinning and generate electricity with wind speeds as low as 3 meters per second. Although it can be expensive to build an entire wind farm, the cost of operating once built is fairly low. Also, the cost of wind-generated electricity has been decreasing by 5% per year and will continue to do so.
One drawback of wind energy is that other power plants must be kept running in the case that there is no wind to spin the turbines. They also cause something known as wind turbine disorder, which is a loss of sleep and high level of stress caused by non-stop low-frequency noise. This is commonly reported by citizens living near wind farms. However, if wind energy plants are only located in extremely rural areas, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. But the transmission lines themselves can cause problems, including compacting soil and agricultural land, damaging drain tiles, and interfering with the moving of irrigation equipment.
Solar energy is another intriguing option. It is one of the fastest growing energy sources in the world, experiencing a 50% growth rate over the last 5 years.
Solar energy produces no pollution, does not require linkage to a national grid, and often saves its users a lot of money over a span of years. Also, it allows its users to achieve energy independence that is not achieved with other sources.
The shortcomings of solar energy are also noteworthy. The initial cost of buying the cells and installing them can be enormous, so anyone looking to use solar panels would have to commit to their cells for years if they want to get reasonably priced energy. Unfortunately, solar energy can only be generated during daylight hours and is only practical in sunny locations. Studies show that while solar panels do not produce pollution, they still contribute to global warming by giving off heat that the cells are not efficient enough to convert to energy.
Natural gas has been seen as an appealing transition from oil and coal to greener, renewable energy sources.
First of all, natural gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel, emitting 45% less CO2 than coal and 30% less than oil. We already have the infrastructure built to transport the energy, and there is an abundant supply of natural gas right here in the U.S., an estimated 1.8 trillion barrels.
However, natural gas still creates significant pollution as it contains 80 to 95% methane, a potent greenhouse gas. It can also be dangerous as it is highly explosive. Transportation is difficult as well because natural gas requires extensive pipelines and concentrated sources are often required to be moved long distances.
Now that we have discussed the various energy sources, let's see what an expert has to say.
Hi Lori, thank you for taking your time to talk with us today. My first question is, how can the U.S. achieve energy independence?
Well, Connor, thanks for asking. First, the U.S. must look at renewable energy sources such as wind and solar. Secondly, we can continue to extract our own oil from shale. And thirdly, we need to move toward more energy-efficient products.
What sources of energy do you see for our future?
I see that there needs to be a balance between renewable and non-renewable sources. Oil will still be a part of the equation, but renewable resources, again, wind and solar, need to take a bigger role in the equation.
Thank you for your time.
With all these different energy sources, it's important for the U.S. to devise an effective plan for utilizing each one. It's obvious that we can't depend on a single source because they all have their flaws. Important questions must be asked.
What should be the priority, using the cheapest or greenest energy sources?
Should we produce electric or oil-powered cars?
These questions must be considered in the coming years, and more attention needs to be shifted to this area or we run the risk of losing not only energy sources but much, much more.
The U.S. must become more energy independent. Sources that can be found inside the country should be utilized, as it lowers the chances of conflict with outside exporters. Americans must decide whether to go green, even if it isn't the most cost-effective choice.